on that one. Let's see, Tucker, I'll go to you. As far as Tennessee Vols updates, people going out, people coming in, you got your whole big list there. What's your main takeaways in the Tennessee program so far?
Yeah, so it's obviously a little bit disappointing to lose some of these older guys, right? Addison Nichols was one that came out since we last went off air. He goes to Arkansas. That's one that I'm not too worried about what Tennessee's losing there. He had a chance to take over that backup center role, and he essentially could not get it. And I think if you're getting beat up by Ollie Lane for that center position earlier on in the season instead of taking over for Cooper Mays like he was expected to, then I think that overall this can't be as bad of a loss for Tennessee as it may appear. He was the first 4-star of the Heupel era, which is a little sad, but that's just kind of the nature of the beast at this point with the transfer portal in the NCAA. And then I was mentioning last night, you get Cole Harrison out of California. This kid, he's an underrated prospect, 3-star, but he's got some tape on him. So I think that they're really going to like that. And it's another guy you can plug in. Probably not going to use a ton this year, but Ethan Davis will be ahead of him as well as Holden Stays now. So it's good to have depth at that position, being 3 deep there. And then the last big commit they got earlier this morning, actually, Jermod McCoy, the defensive back from Oregon State. Obviously, it's a sinking ship up there in Corvallis. As much as I hate to say it, they've had a great season this year, but it's just been rough for them, man. It's they're at a point now in which they're not going to a power conference anymore. It's no longer looked at as a good place to go, and it was between Texas A&M and Tennessee for McCoy. And a lot of the A&M sites were hinting that he would go to Tennessee, and that's what he did. And I think you have to feel a lot better about yourself now if you're Tennessee because you've landed a handful of DBs out of high school here, but now you've gotten both Jermod McCoy and Jacoby Thomas out of the portal, and you've likely got a guy in Ricky Gibson that you can pencil in one of those other spots. So, you got some good youth that you had on this team last year, but you're sprinkling in some transfers. And I think it's a good mix for Tennessee going forward, get some new blood in there. And, yeah, hopefully they can just keep that upward trajectory going into 2024.
Yeah, exactly. For sure. That's what I'm hoping for as well for the Tennessee Vols. People coming out, but also people coming in, like we mentioned on Monday. Other transfer news, I guess, out of the biggest as far as quarterbacks goes, Will Rogers of Mississippi State goes to Washington, and Kyle McCord of Ohio State going to Syracuse. Big news as far as that goes. Transfer portal, big-time quarterbacks, all coming out of Power 5 schools, transferring out. Mississippi State, I know Jacquez is familiar with, and I know you guys are familiar with this as well. Any comments on these two?
I'm not a big fan of Will Rogers going to Washington. Washington right now as a team is doing very well, going into the playoffs. But Will Rogers leaving Mississippi State going to Washington, I'm not sure how he will fit in our offense. Me personally, and this is kind of crazy statement, but I don't think Will Rogers is as good as he is in football. I think he's a quarterback and try to get the job done, but I don't think he's consistent enough. To make this big jump to Washington. I wasn't expecting Will Rogers to go this big when it comes out of school. I know Washington is not a school that has been on the map in quite some time because they're just now making their big jump to making their big jump to becoming the team who they are. But I'm not a big fan of Washington picking this up. I was looking forward to Washington picking someone else up rather than Will Rogers coming out of the transfer portal. And I'm just not a big fan of this.
Well, there's a reunion up there between him and Dylan Johnson, I guess. I mean, if Dylan Johnson is staying there for another season.
Yeah, but when we think about, I don't know, this might be some inside scoop. Well,
yeah.
This is
know these guys personally.
Yeah, so allegedly, right? When we talk about Dylan Johnson, right? One of the reasons why he left, in my opinion, one of the reasons why he left Mississippi State is because they wasn't giving him the opportunities, right? He was having all these catches, but he wasn't getting the ball down on the running ground. You know what I mean? And I think Dylan Johnson going to Washington and started him a whole new journey, and now getting an opportunity to get the ball on the ground and be on the run and show that he could be a versatile running back. And then you tell me that to a certain extent you move away from Will Rogers so you can play with a quarterback that can help you um, develop yourself even more into a better running back. You know what I'm saying? See different things, audibles and everything. But now you're telling me that we recruit Will Rogers to the same place that you end up leaving from, right? Now, regardless, you did have success in the passing game with him, but when it come down to check calls and running, um, it just wasn't matching. You know what I'm saying? So I just don't think Dylan and Will Rogers. I guess it all depends on the coach and the play calls down in Washington, but I'm not sure if I like that mix.
Yeah, it's interesting because I think you can obviously see that Will's production went down this season after doing away with the air raid, which, by the way, I thought was just a horrible idea. Wait till that guy's out of there before you do away with the air raid because it clearly hurt Mississippi State's offensive production. And, I just think that going to a system like Washington, it's not an air raid. Let's be very clear about that. But it's something similar to what, Tennessee did here last year. And I think it'll give him a chance to, really show himself as, showcase himself in that final year of college and really boost that draft stock. Maybe not make him look as much like maybe the system QB he was at Mississippi State. Now, air raid, it's essentially to what passing is as triple option is to running, right? It's very much a system in which it's not, I want to be careful using the word gimmick here because, obviously Josh Heupel's offense has been described as gimmicky in the past, but, you just don't see that all the time in the NFL. But I think overall what we've seen with the development of Michael Penix since he's left Indiana, gone to Washington, I think there's hope for Will Rogers here as, a somewhat under-recruited quarterback out of the state of Mississippi. So, yeah, I think this is going to be a decent move for him. It'll be a upward movement, now that Washington is in the Big Ten and they've got a college football playoff under their belt as opposed to a team in Mississippi State that's just kind of rebuilding at the moment.
Yeah, this is definitely going to show how good Will Rogers is in a different system, right? Because he's been on the Mississippi State for like the last 4 years, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, yeah.
So considering that he's in a new state, new system, new coaches and everything, this is going to see how good Will Rogers is as a quarterback.
Yeah, I would agree with that for sure. We're definitely going to see, some moments of truth for Will Rogers on a better team, of course. Will Rogers.
You were talking about Kyle McCord, right?
From Syracuse.
Okay, yeah. So it's interesting what's going on there at Syracuse right now because, you hire Fran Brown to replace Dino Babers, and Babers had just kind of run his course up there. Apparently, this guy had been a recruiting machine when he was down there at Georgia, and he's gone ahead and gotten a couple of people out of the portal, some big names. McCord being one of them. And I was honestly a little bit surprised to see Kyle McCord leave Ohio State the way he did. And, Ohio State is a program that, quarterbacks come to and, you can develop one as a starter and likely put that guy in the NFL. And that's mainly been the case over the last several seasons. It's been a while since we've seen a starter at Ohio State transfer out. In fact, I can't really name you the last one. I mean, they've all been backups. Joe Burrow, just to name one. So yeah, it's weird how all this is happening, and they're getting these good players to Syracuse. And Syracuse is a program in which they've had a lot of success over the years. Maybe not as much recently, but going back 1990s prior, they really turned out some good teams. Donovan McNabb played at Syracuse, big time quarterback there once upon a time. So it's definitely a place where they have a winning culture, or at least did before they jumped to the ACC. Maybe just a fresh beginning for Kyle McCord. And, that just kind of goes to show you some uncertainty with the program, maybe at Ohio State. Ryan Day hasn't been able to get over that Michigan / Big Ten championship hump for a little bit. Yes, they got to the college football playoff last year, but, they fell in the end of Georgia. So, it just kind of makes you ask some questions about the program as a whole. There seems to be a lot more people leaving it right now than there are coming to it, at least as far as transfers are concerned.
What happened to Strader from
Schrader?
yeah, Strader's still at university. Has he declared for
I
the
believe he's graduated, if I'm
he's-
not mistaken, because he had because he had spent that year at Mississippi State. I believe it was only the year.
yeah.
And then he was there for, I guess, the last 3 or 4 seasons. I mean, he's a year older than me, so you would think his eligibility's up by now. But yeah, I think McCord should easily beat out Schrader because, Schrader, a good runner at times from what I saw of him, but, the passing just wasn't always there. And I think McCord's a little bit more natural in that role compared to Garrett Schrader.
And we better be real careful about these people transferring out from Ohio State because we seen what Joe Burrow did when he went from Ohio State to LSU. So we better be real careful because we might be seeing some good football down in Syracuse. So I wouldn't be surprised what they might do this upcoming season.
That's very true. Would be exciting. In fact, love the Joe Burrow example. Of course, that's an extreme one, but you never know with those Ohio State quarterbacks. There's a lot more recruiting before we get into the bowl games that have happened so far. Tucker, do you have any other things that you want to highlight on this list of things that we have?
Well, obviously today's a big day for a lot of people. Signing on to their, I guess, first team. I say first team now like it's the NFL, but the sad part is that's kind of what it's become here lately, just with the transfer portal, among other things. So, I think Kentucky is a school that has had some interesting success in the portal as of late. And what I mean by that is they got a linebacker from Georgia today. Jamin Dumas-Johnson is the kid's name. And he is, he is a former Biletnikoff, or not Biletnikoff. Why did I say that? Butkus Award finalist when he was down there at Georgia. He is the second Georgia Bulldog to transfer up to Lexington this offseason, along with Brock Vandegrift. Vandegrift's the quarterback, and he just didn't really ever seem to find his footing at Georgia. He got beat out by Carson Beck, so it was kind of like he's just guaranteed to not really do anything there, I guess is the best way I have of putting that. So, yeah, Kentucky stocking up the portal is fascinating to say the least.
For sure, I would have to agree. Bowl games, there's been some bowl games, and it's the early days of bowl season. But a school we're probably familiar with, Western Kentucky, came back to beat Old Dominion 38-35 in overtime in the Toastery Bowl. Right?
Famous Toastery Bowl.
What was it?
Famous Toastery Bowl.
Famous Toastery Bowl. Yes. So this, I guess, from the weekend was probably the most entertaining, I would have to say, because they were down 21-0.
I believe it's 28-0.
Their, biggest deficit in the first half. So, these early games, it may be really small schools, and it may be schools you don't care about, but you got to admit it's entertaining nonetheless.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's kind of sad because this game was actually the Bahamas Bowl, but that stadium is under renovation down there in the Bahamas, so they weren't able to play that game there. Western Kentucky, I believe, has been there a couple times now. So, they come from behind. They get the win over Old Dominion. Western Kentucky's a fun group of 5 team to keep up with. They always seem to be in the mix for conference championships out there in the Conference USA. And, of course, they have that 100 miles of hate rivalry with MTSU that's just, it's a battle every single season. But good win for the Hilltoppers, I suppose. It's good for them as a program to get some of these bowl victories because that's really the best thing you can strive for, unfortunately, when you're playing at that level.
Yeah, speaking of bowl games, we have some more this weekend. Southport and Syracuse. Speaking of Syracuse, both 6-6 tomorrow at 8 p.m. in the Boca Raton Bowl. We got Georgia Tech and UCF on Friday. Some other familiar teams along the way. Troy and Duke on Saturday. Georgia State, unfortunately, we're familiar with that, and Utah State also on Saturday. Any of these guys stick out to you? Will you guys be tuning into any of these?
Give me the Butch Jones special, Arkansas State versus Northern Illinois in the Camellia Bowl. That is what I'm looking forward to the most. just because I want to see Butch struggle against the Huskies. That's just what the crazy person in me is saying right now. Um, but for real though, that USF and Syracuse game, that's interesting because another guy we know pretty well from his time here at Tennessee, Alex Golish, got the job down there in Tampa this fall, and he's got the Bulls to 6-6 in year one, going up against an ACC opponent in the Boca Raton Bowl. So I'm really looking forward to seeing what Golish can accomplish there. And USF has kind of been a bit of a sleeping giant lately in the, I guess, ranks of American Conference and Group of Five. They used to be a power. I mean, you go back to the late 2000s and mid 2010s. I know when Charlie Strong was there, they had developed a pretty strong they developed a pretty strong program. Quentin Flowers, I believe, was the quarterback's name then, and it was him and what was the other guy? Willie Taggart, the coach that ran off to Oregon and then Florida State, and unfortunately failed miserably at Florida State. Western Kentucky alum. Now that we mentioned it, he built that program up into something that was pretty special a few years back, but they just haven't been the same since. And it's good to see Golish, have some revival there. But Syracuse is also a very optimistic team at the moment, as we just highlighted, bringing in some guys from the transfer portal. Fran Brown really doing a good job recruiting. So these are two programs that have got a lot of momentum going forward. Really, really like to be where they are right now.
Yeah, the game I'm looking forward to when it comes down to bowl games is the Peach Bowl, Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl. Penn State versus Ole Miss. I think this would be a great matchup. Penn State coming in at ranked number 10, Ole Miss coming in at ranked number 11. I think that Penn State has always been a good program, but somehow they just never found to pull everything out. And I think Ole Miss is also just they're inching closer and closer to becoming a really good team as they begin to progress as the years come on. But I think these are two programs that are going to just shine light on both of them, so that exactly what they're capable of doing next year. So I'm kind of excited to see both of these teams end up coming up. And yeah,
it's a fascinating one for sure because it's funny. I was actually there the last time Ole Miss and James Franklin played. For just so you know, my dad went to Ole Miss, so I grew up a little bit of a Rebel fan. But I had ties here to Tennessee as well. But it was a great game between James Franklin and the Rebels. Ole Miss ended up outrunning them there at the end. Jeff Scott, 70-yard touchdown run, 39-35 victory back there in 2013. Still probably a top 5 great college football game I've ever been to. And I've seen some good ones here. I can't lie. But yeah, it's the battle of coaches that are looking to turn a corner in their career. James Franklin has not been able to turn the corner at Penn State. He's gone 10-2 year in and year out. Losing to Michigan and Ohio State, just every year seemingly not been able to make it into the Big Ten championship, thus not making it into the college football playoff. Meanwhile, you've got Lane Kiffin, who has developed the unfortunate nickname Little Game Lane. And what do I mean by that? Well, he's coached at a big time program at USC, but he's never won anything for himself that would get him any kind of recognition. So, he's got a chance to do that here, get a New Year's Six Bowl win. And, obviously had that time at Ole Miss in 2021 where he went 10-2. Probably his best win that season was the game here where, golf balls were thrown onto the field. But I mean, this year, they had the win against LSU, who went 9-3. And, LSU is a good team. I'll stand by my take I had at the beginning of the season. But this would really add another layer to that because they just weren't able to finish in 2021 when they lost the Sugar Bowl against Baylor. Of course, Matt Corral going down didn't help things at all for them, but this is really an opportunity for them to do so, especially when you consider all the momentum they've got in the transfer portal right now.
Chloe.
For the record, your take was LSU is not underrated, and I said that LSU is overrated. Sorry.
No, they're not overrated.
Not overrated.
Trust me. They were not overrated because I said there were 2 losable games for them all season, Alabama and Florida State. Sure, they lost both of those games. Ole Miss had a good season. They kind of ride that 4-win to 10-win roller coaster. And sure, they beat LSU. They didn't stop LSU. They just managed to outrun them. So, again, not surprised at all by the fact that LSU won 9 games at the very least. And, they still got a chance to win 10. I know Jaden Daniels is not playing in the bowl or anything, but, I I could still see them winning 10 games this year. It's very much a possibility for Brian Kelly in year two, setting a very good standard down there in Death Valley.
Meh. Anyways,
Hey, Chloe,
because it's the beginning of the year, and LSU is ranked top 5, and I was saying they weren't going to be that. So that's the whole thing. But we do have to move on from college football for a second. Obviously, I'm very excited for all the New Year's Six bowl games, the college football playoff. We'll talk more about those. So as we move on, we do college hoops really fast. Lady Vols beat Wofford as they should, 85-63. They got back on that winning record. They play Liberty, which they should beat on the road New Year's Eve before they go into SEC play. And that one's definitely going to be difficult. Auburn and Kentucky, the first 2 games of that. SEC for women's is looking pretty tough this year, so looking pretty competitive. So I'm excited to see how they do in that. Right now, if I'm being completely honest, I'm not too confident. The game, when a team like Wofford, this was definitely a good, confident win, but there were some moments in that game I was there where Wofford gave them a hard time, and that's just not going to stand in SEC play. It's not. I don't know. It's kind of I don't really know about how that's going to go, but we wish them the best. Not a lot to talk about there. However, men, number 8 in the country, they beat pretty physical game against. They had a game against NC State, 9-point win, 79-70 in San Antonio. We talked about that on Monday. And then they have Tarleton State, which of course they should win tomorrow night before going into this Ole Miss game that we've been talking about. First game of SEC play. Chris Beard, head coach, Ole Miss, number 25. Pretty decent, looking to play out to be a pretty decent team this year so far ahead of SEC play.
Yeah, it's interesting because you've got a group of transfers down there at Ole Miss, and in fact, I mean, outside of I guess Matt Morrell and Jamin Brakefield transferred 2 years ago in from Duke, so yeah, they've got a lot of guys that have transferred in this season. I know Brandon Murray, 2-time transfer from I believe LSU, and then Georgetown was the other one where he transferred in from. But all that to say, they've put together a good group of players just through the transfer portal so far. And I think it's just because, the fact that they've brought in everybody and Chris Beard has managed to coach them up. Now, granted, they haven't played a lot of very good competition so far. I say that in comparison to Tennessee, who has played the murderer's row that is Purdue, Kansas, and North Carolina back to back. So the Ole Miss has a win over that same NC State Tennessee just beat at home by 20. They've also got a win over Cal, who's just kind of so-so. But they've also got a win over a pretty good Memphis team right now. So it's really going to come down to whether or not they can carry it into SEC play. So, yeah, I think Ole Miss looks solid for the moment, but this will be their first test here in Knoxville.
Yeah, I definitely agree that Tennessee men basketball team, considering that we get ready to come into the new year, that they're getting ready to face a quite challenge, but I think they're ready for it. Like how you said, they face 3 top 10 big teams, and when you face 3 top 10 big teams early on in the season, earlier in the season you still have your struggles. So now that some of the, I guess you could say they got most of the jitterbugs out, but now coming into the new year, they should be fresh off and just be like, okay, we lost 3 of the top 10 teams, but you know what? We as a team can still make this run later on in the season coming into the new year. So I'm excited to see how that plans out since Ole Miss is 11-0 on the season. But Chloe, I do want to go back to your point with the Lady Vols. They've been struggling this season. They was 5-5 coming into playing Wofford, but now they're 6-5 on the season. But Rakia Jackson is back out there on the floor, and let me tell you, I just think this team looked like a different team with Rakia Jackson on the floor. I don't know what it was last night, but Wofford was playing this a 2-3 and basically leaving the outside open for them to shoot threes, and it was like they was banging the threes. You know what I mean? They wasn't letting the ball in the inside to Rakia Jackson and to Strickland, but on the outside, they was banging the threes, and I was sitting there like, this is a new team. So I don't know if Rakia Jackson being gone really made that an effect on them as a team, But like since Rakia Jackson is back on the court, it's like everything is flowing smoothly. Everybody's playing aggressive. Everybody's playing a chip on the shoulder. So I'm really excited to see them make this next run coming into the new year.
I would have to agree with you. Rakia Jackson played, she played about 21 minutes, about half the game. And even though it was half the game, it was definitely a huge step in the right direction, I would say. It's no doubt that Rakia Jackson is a huge part of this team. She's really important. She definitely got back in her groove really fast. So that's really important. And I think that with her in SEC play, I am definitely more confident about how they are going to do versus her, not in that. So I'm really excited to see where she takes them. She's obviously the key player, I would argue. And this team really needs her for sure.
Yeah. I haven't, I'll be honest, I haven't watched a ton of the Lady Vols this season. And if what you're saying, Jacquez, is right about Rakia Jackson, then yes, you can be a little bit more confident about this team being able to flip a switch, come into conference play, and they desperately need to. Because, like you're saying, Chloe, if the SEC is competitive, I don't have a whole lot of hope for this Lady Vols team, just with everything we've seen so far. Now, granted, that's all been without Rakia. But you also know that they've struggled with injuries that aren't Rakia Jackson. Destiny Wells, correct me if I'm wrong, is out for the season now, right?
Yeah, she's up for the season with a lower leg injury. Kelly Harper announced yesterday after the game.
Yes, so that's it's not good at all for the Lady Vols, and you got to make sure that you can come together and get some of these wins, because this is a program that demands excellence. All right, because Pat Summitt, what she did here at Tennessee, she set the standard for what a good women's basketball program should be. And, obviously that happened, and, you're stuck with Holly Warlick as your head coach. And, she was kind of forced into that role, moral obligation, whatever. But, people are rightfully starting to have the conversation that Kelly Harper may be a failed science experiment here if, things don't continue to get better here soon in conference play. And, if you were to finish anywhere close to 500, I think that would be considered a massive disappointment. And, it would be grounds for fans to start to petition for a firing. And I think they would totally have a legitimate gripe there. I don't know who they would want to get. And that's the main issue with Lady Vol fans, is they're so committed to the tree. But you got to move past the tree at some point if you really want to break through. I mean, look at what Alabama did with Nick Saban. He's not from the Bear Bryant tree, and they're succeeding now in football and have been for quite some time. So I think that's got to be the answer for the Lady Vols, is not going back to the same well that they have been, or at least just did with this time around.
I haven't did too deep of a much research on Kelly Harper, right? But what I will say is that, this team is, since seeing them on the court last night, this is a different team. When we talk about these 5 losses they took early on in the season, I mean, Rakia Jackson only played 2 out of the 5 before they ended up losing. You know what I'm saying? So to a certain extent, I'm going to give Kelly Harper a chance this season.
Okay.
Now, I will say this: USC and LSU, they're not competing with them. You know what I mean?
No, they're not.
But I think they could put up a fight. And if they get enough edge before they go in to they getting ready to go in to play, but I think if they put up build up enough confidence, I think they could hold on. You know what I mean? And if LSU or USC allows them to stay in the game, I think Tennessee finds a way to pull it off. You know what I mean? Because we're talking about Rakia Jackson. Rakia Jackson has experience. So I think her rallying up, amongst all of them and telling them, listen, we can do this. And since Destiny Wells gone out, I don't think that really, this is my opinion, right? I don't think that really hurt the Lady Vols, because I thought Destiny Wells from Belmont, right, coming in, she was a big time recruit. If I'm not mistaken, she was averaging like 20 points a game, stuff like that. I thought she was here to put the ball in the basket and create points for the Lady Vols. And I don't think Destiny Wells have done that. I think she did that 1 out of 15 games. You know what I mean? And I think other than that, at Destiny Wells, I mean, she just wasn't a big contributor. You know what I mean? So, and I think the team that the Lady Vols have right now, since they play Wofford, I understand it's Wofford, it's Wofford, but if they play the way they played last night against Wofford, they will go further than what they actually think they can go this season.
Yeah, they definitely did good. Started playing differently, introduced a full court press. I believe as well. Trying some new things out there against Wofford. But I mean, obviously it worked. Destiny Wells, I think as far as Destiny Wells at Belmont, she's obviously great here. I think she was a work in progress before she got injured. You know, Kelly would always say in the press conferences how they're working on her. She's getting better every day. So it's really sad to see that happen to her. But, you know, I wish her a quick recovery. Rakia Jackson is back, and that's the best news coming out of Lady Vols, as well as the win from last night. So it should be okay. As far as that, we'll probably move on to NFL here really quick. There's a big basketball game going on right now. Baylor and Duke tied at 28-28 with a little over 3.5 minutes in the first half. I have to make sure I'm talking about men's college basketball here, the only one that has halves anymore. So yeah, that's a good one for tonight. Who are you guys going to take, Baylor or Duke in this one?
I'll go with Duke since it's at Cameron Indoor, but now that you mention it, there's actually a couple of these good games on tonight. Oklahoma playing North Carolina. That's a top 11 matchup, 7 versus 11 in the Jumpman Invitational. So Oklahoma's been an interesting story this season. And then later tonight, if you want to stay up this late, Alabama has to go to Arizona. We know, they do have to go to Arizona. They're just playing the game in Phoenix. But, you know, it's going to be tough for Bama. Bama's not the same team they were a season ago with Brandon Miller. So, and Arizona has looked, outside of that Purdue game at the very end, they have looked just unbeatable to start the season. So, yeah, I think we're definitely going to see some great games tonight. But, yeah, give me Duke just since that game is in Cameron Indoor.
I'm a ride with Baylor. You know what I mean? Duke has always been a powerhouse team, and I think Baylor has the better edge coming in. You know, rankings don't really mean nothing, but I'm going to ride with Baylor. I like them as a team, and, you know, right now it's 28-28, but, you know, I think Baylor will pull out.
I think Duke here can get the upset. Not like you said, not that it's much of an upset because this is still early in the season. These rankings don't mean much. But I think that Duke can do it. Like Tucker said, it's in their house, so we'll see how that goes. We're going to take a short break. We'll talk some NFL. We have some pretty exciting Monday Night Football, and we'll talk about this weekend as well. Stay tuned to Volunteer Radio 90.3 The Rock. You'll listen to Rock Solid Sports.
The Rock receives support from Fieldhouse Social, a fun and laid-back restaurant that offers American craft food, cocktails, and 40 beers on tap, with a 25-foot live TV and a full lounge area for sports fans. Open 6 days a week right on campus at University Commons, where football, food, and fun come together. FieldhouseSocial.com.
Hi, this is Ambulance, and you're listening to WUTK 90.3 FM Knoxville, UT's College of Rock.
The Rock thanks the UT Athletic Department and the Lady Vols basketball program for their support. Coach Kelly Harper and the Lady Vols 2023-2024 home schedule includes games against Notre Dame, Ohio State, SEC foes, and more. allvols.com. Student ticket info is at bigorangetics.utk.edu. That's TIX. The Rock says, go Lady Vols.
Smoke on Rocky Top, ain't no telephone bill.
Volunteer Radio remains on the air thanks to support from the UT Athletic Department. The 2024 baseball fall season runs February into May with games against SEC rivals Georgia, LSU, Missouri, and more at Lindsey Nelson Stadium. Allballs.com. Students need to show a valid ID at the gate before entrance. Tune into Rock Solid Sports for UT baseball coverage, and The Rock wishes Coach Vitello and the Base Vols good luck on the diamond this season.
Hello, this is Del Bryant, son of Boudleaux and Felice Bryant, the authors of Rocky Top, and you are tuned into Volunteer Radio 90.3 The Rock, where they put the rock in Rocky Top.
WUTK thanks the UT Athletic Department and the Lady Vols basketball program for their support, and we wish Coach Kelly Harper and the team good luck this season. The Lady Vols' next home game is versus Kentucky Sunday, January 7th at Thompson Bowling Arena at Food City Center at noon. Student ticket requests are at bigorangetics.utk.edu. That's TIX. General public tickets are at allvols.com. Volunteer Radio says, go Lady Vols, beat the Wildcats.
The Rock thanks Cool Beans, 1817 Lake Avenue, 1 block south of the Strip, for sponsoring and hosting Monday night Rock Solid Sports broadcast at 7 p.m. Cool Beans is the campus headquarters for food, brews, pool, shot starts, sports, and more fun. Tuesday night is team trivia night, and Thursday nights are for bingo. CoolBeansBar.com or their Facebook page for more info.
Volunteer Radio thanks the UT Athletic Department and the men's basketball program for their support. Coach Barnes' 9th season on the Summit includes home games against Kentucky, Vandy, and more at Thompson Bowling Arena. AllVols.com. Student ticket info and login is at bigorangetics.utk.edu. That's TIX. Volunteer Radio says, go Vols basketball.
Knoxville, be sure to tune in Wednesday nights from 8 until 10 p.m. for The Alternative, sponsored by Bliss and Troy Mason Shoes on Gate Street and at West Town Mall. And Bliss Home at the Gallery Shopping Center, also sponsored by Boyd's Chicken Grill Bar and Live Music Venue in the heart of Knoxville's Old City. The Alternative features 2 hours of the best in Americana music from the station who first brought Knoxville music by bands from back in the alt-country days, like the Jayhawks, Uncle Tupelo, Steve Earle, and Jason and the Scorchers, to 90s Americana like the V-Roys, Whiskey Town, Lucinda Williams, Sunvold, and others, to modern-day Americana musicians like Molly Tuttle, Tyler Childers, Casey Musgrave, Sturgill Simpson, Billy Strings, and the Punch Brothers. You'll also get classic Americana like Johnny Cash, the band, and Emmylou Harris, and there's always Patsy Cline at 9. Tune in Wednesday nights at 8 for The Alternative. Sponsored by Boyd's Chicken Grill, Bliss Home, and Tory Mason Shoes, and only on 90.3 The Rock, UT's College of Rock.
The Rock thanks the Knoxville Ice Bears Southern Professional Hockey League team for their support. Their 2023-24 home ice season from October through April includes games with Fayetteville, Huntsville, Roanoke, and more at the Civic Coliseum downtown. Single game and season tickets at KnoxvilleIceBears.com. Rock Solid Sports features Ice Bears Wednesdays with news and updates. Volunteer Radio says, go Ice Bears!
Craft food, beer, and cocktails, a 21-foot digital big screen TV indoors, and plenty more TVs throughout the restaurant, and a back patio, open at 11 a.m. Wednesdays through Sundays, close on Mondays, and open again at Tuesdays. As you can see, trivia going on out here. Big basketball games sounds like a great place to be for sure. We're going to do some NFL. We got Tucker and Jacquez back in the studio. We'll do Monday night, Seattle Seahawks versus Philadelphia Eagles. Philly is ahead, and Drew Lock with rookie touchdown with 28 seconds left, I believe. I don't know about you guys. I was watching the Manning cast. Peyton Manning says he thinks the Eagles are going to be able to bounce back. I mean, they're pretty much locked into the playoffs at this point. What do you guys think what do you guys think the future holds for the Eagles at this point?
Well, they are locked into the playoffs for one. It's either going to be them or the Cowboys that win the NFC East, and they're both making it regardless. One of them will be the 5 seed in the wild card round. But it's fascinating to see the Seahawks get that win with Drew Lock. I mean, this is a guy that people have written off, kind of portrayed as the meme quarterback in the NFL, so to speak, as a backup. So, I think it's good for the Seahawks to get the win. Now, they got to have a lot of things happen. A lot of things need to tip in their direction in order for them to reach the playoffs. But, good win for them nonetheless. I want to say, too, Chloe, you mentioned the Manning cast. They had Christian McCaffrey on, and, of course, he's beaten both of those teams. And I forget what question it was exactly. But it was something to do with long touchdowns or something that Christian McCaffrey scored, and he was complimenting his receivers, and he said, Jawan Jennings is one of the best blocking wide receivers I have ever seen. So high praise for Aval right there from the best running back in the NFL.
I love Jawan Jennings.
Yeah, I think the Eagles, like how you mentioned, the Eagles is on a 3-game losing streak, but this can be a very dangerous team. Whenever a team goes on a 3-game losing streak, you got to be careful because everybody's mind right now is like, how can we get this ball back rolling, right? Because early in the season, the ball was rolling. It wasn't really losing like that. And now that they're catching losses late in the season, you got to be very careful. The reason why I say this is because once they get back on that rhythm, I don't think no one will be able to knock them off as a team, right? Jalen Hurts mentioned in an interview yesterday that the connection between everybody's just playing one man ball, and as a team, you can't play one man ball, So I'm eager to see how Jalen Hurts rallied his team back together. I know there has been talk, right, that Jalen Hurts has been sick, so he hasn't been playing his best ball also. So I think when this team finally gets their feet back underneath themselves, I think this team gets back rolling. They make a strong contender for late in the playoffs.
Yeah, I think so as well. I think the Eagles will be fine too. The losing streak, like we said, they're in the playoffs. We'll see how that goes. It's going to be interesting for sure. We also have Thursday night football tomorrow night. This one should be interesting. You got the Saints and Los Angeles Rams, not the Chargers. So it should be, they both have the same record. They're both, kind of meh this year. It should be some decent Thursday night football. I'm interested to hear who your guys' picks are for tomorrow night.
You say meh. I say playoff contenders. That's exactly what we're looking at here. Because right now the Rams are a team that has a chance to lock up a wild card spot in the later portion of the season. Obviously, one team in the NFC East is going to get that. But there's still two left. It could be the Rams. It could be one of these NFC South teams. And, it could be the Vikings or even, maybe the Packers at this point. Right now, the Saints, though, are in a fight for a division title with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They need this win in the worst possible way. So with that, I'm still going to go with the Rams, though. I like the way that Matthew Stafford's playing out there. They're very quietly putting together a pretty solid season in LA, but because nobody's just going to beat the machine that is the San Francisco 49ers. So with that, I'm going to pick the Rams. Maybe it's because it's the home team, but I like what I'm seeing out there. Some of these younger guys that they've managed to get into the mix, along with Cooper Kupp and Matthew Stafford, guys like Puka Nacua, Tutu Atwell, Kyron Williams running the football. So sneaky good offense out there in LA.
Yeah, I'm saying I'm gonna go ride with the Rams. I know both of these two teams struggled early on in the season, and they don't have the best football record in the National Football League. But I'm gonna ride with the Rams. It's home team advantage, crowd going crazy, and I think Matthew Stafford and Cooper Kupp will find a way to pull it out.
I think I'm going to lean with the Rams as well. Both have had their struggles, like you guys said, but I don't know.
Oh, good Lord! We all picked the Eagles to win on Monday night.
See the home team, Tennessee Titans. Seattle's playing there this weekend. The team we just talked about on Christmas Eve at 1 p.m. in Nashville. This one is going to be tough for sure. I don't know if I'm feeling too good about this one, but as we have seen and as we have talked about for the past week. Not that it matters anymore. The Titans are not going to the playoffs, but I'd rather them get wins, of course. But Seattle, as we talked about in this past week, I don't know how to predict if the Titans are going to win or not anymore. I can't. There's no way to do it. I did this week because I knew that they beat the Dolphins. I knew naturally they were going to lose to the Texans. So, what do you guys think?
Oh man, how to be depressed as a Titans fan. It's just brutal watching these guys right now. And without Will Levis, I just don't think there's much hope for this team. Obviously, Ryan Tannehill is going to be the guy back there this week. At least it seems like. But it's just so hard to say that I have confidence in this team when the door right here. This door frame could do a better job blocking sometimes than our offensive line that we got there in Tennessee. So that's just how bad I feel about the protection and really just production of this offense is just the fact that, it all starts up front and they don't have it up front right now. So I got to say the Seahawks win it. And, it's just we're at a point now with the Titans where it's like you're out of the playoffs. You have nothing left to play for other than a draft pick. I hate to be that guy, but it might be better to lose. It really might be better to lose.
I'm going with the Seahawks, but what's crazy to me is that we Titan fans love Will Levis, right? And he's had some games where he didn't beat the Miami Dolphins. He had some big key winning games since he got a thing. But did we really lose hope in Ryan Tannehill of who he was? Like just 2 years ago or a year ago, Ryan Tannehill was that guy. Now it's just like, oh yeah, Ryan Tannehill's come back in. But hey, I still got faith in him. But I'm just gonna take the Seahawks on top of this one.
I'll pick the Seahawks as well. I think, coming off a big win, I think that they're better than the Titans at this point. Titans have too much going not their way currently. I also would like to show that clip of whatever Tucker just said, something about, I don't know what the team is without Will Levis, and play that back for Tucker circa last May.
Yeah.
On that show on Friday.
Oh,
it's a full circle moment.
That'd be a funny idea because I actually thought that was a terrible pick in the moment, but I was proven wrong. He just needs some help around him now. That's the big thing for Will Levis coming up here in the next year or so.
Yeah, exactly. We got more games as well. We'll talk about them on Friday. Obviously, we have a huge lot of games this weekend on Christmas Day, Christmas Eve. We'll talk about those on Friday. I'll probably do the old Jack Foster locks and upsets as well. But right now, we are done for the night. We'll be back on Friday. The Alternative is up next. Listen to Volunteer Radio 94.3 The Rock, UT's College of Rock.